With an electronic bug zapper on your patio, annoying, blood-sucking insects that come near you get zapped, allowing you to enjoy your evening without bother. But now you're on your way to the office, a place that's also swarming with annoying bloodsuckers who want to ruin your day. But not when you install the new Office Zapper, the industrial-size zapper that kills office bloodsuckers. Just hang the Office Zapper in your office or cubicle. It stops all kinds of office pests, from the busybody...
Listen, I know you're busy, but have you heard who's having an affair?
...to the sexual harasser.
Hey, hot pants, how about you and me get it?
Even those hard-to-kill upper management types.
Johnson, I need this report done.
And the Office Zapper's 1,000-volt electric shock uses so much power, it dims lights in the rest of the office, letting everyone else know you mean business. So get the job done with a new industrial-sized Office Zapper. And stop getting bugged at work.
Office Zapper may not be legal in some states.
Well, that sounds like a great product. I'm 100% here for it. That's the kind of mood I'm in right now, based on the events of the last 24 hours. Welcome to Mark Moseley Show on social media at Mark Moseley, Moseley. There's 2 E's in there. And I am very angry right now. I have been very angry since the news broke yesterday. I knew this was coming. I have been talking about this for weeks. If you've been a regular viewer / listener of this podcast, you know that I have been warning that at some point, all of this foolishness, and I want to use stronger language, all of this foolishness has gotten someone killed. And I see each and every one of you who are personally responsible. You know who you are. And when you lie down to sleep tonight, I hope you see the light and ask God for forgiveness. Because it's all political fun and games until somebody gets killed. I've been saying this for weeks now. Someone is going to wind up dead because of you people who have been parroting the dangerous, ridiculous, absurd lie narrative of the media like the sheep that you are. You were silent when Obama expelled or turned away over 3 million brown people. But now that ICE is doing their jobs, the same job under a president you don't like, suddenly, you know, they're Nazi stormtroopers. All of you playing political games have inspired this mindset to permeate our society. To the point where this woman who obviously, and she'd been harassing ICE all day, obviously believed that she didn't need to respect law enforcement, and now she got herself killed. But her blood is on every hypocrite out there who had no problem with all the dreams and lives that Barack Obama destroyed, that Joe Biden destroyed. You reserve no anger for Joe Biden and his administration, Mayorkas and all of them, the people that created all of this chaos in the first place, but you're mad at Trump. And sure, there are some of you you have some intelligence and you know that this is all political games. But there are a lot of people, not everybody is as smart as you are. There are some people who think this is real. I am so angry right now. This needs to stop. Or you could just double down and get more people killed. And they will. I saw videos of people yelling at ICE and calling them criminals. And they believe that. They think that ICE are the bad guys and that the criminals that Joe Biden led into the country and all of these people that are committing all of this fraud, well, they're just misunderstood. The ICE agent who shot her did so in self-defense, but many people will swear it was not necessary. No, he should have let her run him down. Kristi Noem said of the officer involved, quote, he's been in situations like this before, and he certainly has been out there, and he was out there following his training today. Noem appeared to reference the same officer when she said, you know, back in June or July of last year, this same officer had been rammed and dragged by an anti-ICE motorist. So you're mad. How do you think he feels? Huh? And ICE wasn't even there deporting anyone on January 7th when this happened. Today is the 8th. We're taping this show. They were there on a fraud investigation. But video circulating online has fueled controversy, critics disputing the federal account and demanding independent investigations. The initial video, the initial angle that we saw was kind of fuzzy and unclear, but there have been other videos that have surfaced. Let's take a look at this one. Yeah, it looks like she clipped him with her car. But Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey have both condemned the operation and called for ICE to leave the city. You're the reason why ICE is there in the first place with your sanctuary city policies. I'm not going to go through it again. If you've watched this show, past episodes, if you've listened to this show before it was on video, you know very well that I've broken this down, how it used to work and how it works now. And it is because of sanctuary city policies that ICE has had to change the way they do business. That's why they walk around in plain clothes. That's why they drive around in unmarked vehicles. For those of you who want to know, why are they in unmarked vehicles? Why don't they identify themselves? Because you have a whole bunch of people out there making trouble for them, stirring up people like this woman who got herself killed. Carlos Garcia, writing for The Blaze, has a great rundown on this whole thing. A woman has been shot in the face by federal agents and killed after ramming them with her car, according to a statement from the Department of Homeland Security. Protesters initially claimed that Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers had shot the woman as she was driving away from them. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin released a statement contradicting the claims of the protesters. See, it was early on, but you know what? No one waits anymore. People just dive right in and they make their judgments based on whatever evidence they have. Someone asked me on social media the other day why I had nothing to say about the Maduro thing. For the longest time, I didn't talk about it. And I said, well, you know what? I like to wait and see. I like to wait and let some of the facts trickle in. But people don't do that. They just jump right in with both feet, and they'll slink away later when they're publicly embarrassed by new information that comes out. But back to this story in The Blaze. Quote, today officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officials, and one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. I know that's BS, right? But the video that I just showed you backs up what she said. McLaughlin said in a statement on social media that an ICE officer fired defensive shots after fearing for his life and the safety of the public. Quote, he used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers. The alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. The ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make full recoveries. I'm very sad for this woman and her wife and her family. This should never have happened. If we had a real, honest-to-God media in this country that would report things straight up instead of propagandizing, instead of trying to act like Trump is doing something unprecedented with deporting illegals. But we don't. Can you tell I'm upset? A woman is dead, and it didn't have to happen. You could knock it off, but they won't. Oh, my gosh. Because you know why? Because people in the media have a bloodlust. because they get ratings when things go bad. The more fires there are, the more Walgreens that are being torched, the higher the ratings and the more money they make. And you know that's true. Local reports said anti-ICE officers began to curse and yell at the officers after the incident as they tried to secure the scene. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, a Democrat, immediately called for all ICE agents to leave the city in the wake of the shooting. I am aware of a shooting involving an ICE agent at 34th Street in Portland, he wrote on social media. The presence of federal immigration enforcement agents is causing chaos in our city. No, they're here to bring law and order. You're causing chaos. We're demanding ICE to leave the city immediately. Of course, because you want to continue to shield and protect violent criminals in your sanctuary city. Again, we are not terribly concerned with people. I'll put it this way. Those are not the priority. We are not terribly concerned because you know what? This stuff has been happening since the beginning of America. People have been coming into America illegally, seeking opportunities. I don't prioritize that. That's not number one on my list of things I'm worried about. It's way the heck down here. But the criminals, the murderers, the rapists, the drug dealers, the drug traffickers, the pedophiles, let's get them out of here. And I think probably 95% of you would agree with that. Yeah, there's some nuts out there that are like, no, let them stay. Makes life interesting, I guess, in the big city. We're demanding ICE to leave the city immediately. I'm sure you'd love that. We stand rock solid with our immigrant and refugee communities. You want chaos. You want chaos, so ICE is forced to leave. You know what? ICE, I'll put some blame at ICE's feet. The policy ought to be zero tolerance from now on for anyone that impedes them. Arrest them on the spot. Get it handled. Get it done. Put it down. Hire more agents if that's what you've got to do. I am fine with that. You can't hire them fast enough. We have to have law and order in this country. And we have a political party that's championing, that's out there going, yay, chaos, yay, anarchy. We're all for the criminal. McLaughlin went on to blame anti-ICE rhetoric for the shooting. This is the spokesperson. This is a direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement, she said. These men and women who are simply enforcing the law on the books. The law's on the books. Write your Democrat congressperson and ask them to change federal immigration law. There you go. That's something useful and productive you could do. These men and women are simply enforcing the laws on the books, and they're facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats. For, again, doing the same job, the same work that they did when Joe Biden was president, when Barack Obama was president. Do you know how many people, did you know that Joe Biden deported people? You probably didn't know that. Yes, he let in 10 million, but he deported between 1.5 and 2 million. Make that make sense. Biden's presidency, fiscal year 2021 through fiscal year 2025, ending January of 2025, the administration carried out an estimated approximately 1.5 to 2 million total deportations/removals of unauthorized immigrants, including both formal ICE removals from the U.S. interior and expedited returns at the border, with numbers rising sharply in later years to reach decade highs that often, get this, surpassed comparable periods under the previous Trump administration, according to DHS, ICE, and independent analysis from sources like Migration Policy Institute and CBS News reports, lest you think it was all Fox News. But you weren't mad then, you hypocrites. Did those poor migrants matter to you a whit? Where were all the protests that you voiced then about all the poor families whose dreams were being destroyed? Where was your anger then? Maybe you could DM me on Facebook and direct me to all your posts in 2022 about how Joe Biden was Hitler. I got this last night from someone on Facebook who said, can't we talk about Trump without you comparing him to Obama or Biden? Well, no, we can't, because you're the ones drawing a false distinction, perpetuating a false narrative. And the false narrative is all federal law enforcement are suddenly murderous, jackbooted stormtroopers who are Nazis and they want to destroy America for purely political purposes. And by the way, these are the same people who will tell you that the FBI before and between Trump didn't conspire to get Trump and weren't in the crowd stirring up protests on January 6th. Oh, no, that's completely implausible. No federal agents would mix politics into their jobs. But now, Trump is the wellspring from which all evil flows. Trump is the inspiration for their transition to Nazism. How do you liberals imagine that ICE agents got immigrants out of the country before Trump and between Trump? How did they do it? You got to calm down, Mark. You're getting too worked up. You got to breathe.
Serenity now! Serenity now!
How did Obama cajole 3 million people to leave? How did Joe Biden coax 2 million people out of our lands? At least Trump is giving away money if you leave on your own. At least Trump is consistent. Joe Biden let in 10 million and then deported 2 million. I don't know, maybe it was the brain freeze from all the ice cream. I got something for you here. Barack Obama is here to explain how he deported 3 million people without having all these protests. And because everyone just assumes now that every celebrity impression they hear is just AI, we'll do it live.
We'll do it live! Do it live!
Here we go. Hello. Now, I'm former President Barack Obama. Now, here's how during my administration, we deported 3 million people and got away with it without major protests or even pushback from the media. We kept ICE nice. When we identified a person here illegally who we wanted to run out of town, we would start out by sending them a friendly email featuring our official DHS mascot, Fuera the Ferret. That's right, Fuera the deportation ferret. A cute little scamp, there he is on screen there. A cute little scamp who asked the question, wouldn't you rather be in Honduras? Now, if that email was ignored, what we'd do is we'd send a second email that was slightly more pointed, featuring Busta the Burro. That's right, Busta the Burro, who wanted to know, have you accidentally crossed international borders? If that was ignored, the next step, we would send a plainclothes agent out to their home who would knock very gently on their door and ask them very, very politely as possible, if it's not too much trouble, would you follow us, please? We'd like to ask you, if it's convenient, would you mind exiting our country? Then we would drive them in a luxury van to the nearest border, a van with Sirius XM radio, by the way, and I'm talking full subscription here, not that stupid preview channel. And then when we arrived at the border, they would get cookies and blankies, and we would read them La Suave Patria, a beautiful poem about the stunning natural beauty of Mexico, before very gently placing them in a large floating wicker basket on the Rio Grande, and then slowly nudging them into the current with a smile and a wave and a via con Dios. That's how we did it. And I just know that if Trump would try this, things would really quiet down out there and people would stop defying law enforcement. Then again, probably not. But that's how we kept ICE nice. Thank you, and God bless America. Welcome back to Mark Moseley Show. Thanks for following me on social media and subscribing to my podcast on Spreaker, on iHeart, on Spotify, on YouTube, on Dasher, on Dancer. And please, would you leave a comment, give a thumbs up, hit the bell, do the thing. You know the thing. You know the thing. All the things. Do all the things. And please subscribe to me on YouTube, because that tells the magic-y algorithm thing that people like this. And you should share it, YouTube. Share it with other people out there who might also like it. Well, the violence, of course, is going to spiral upwards and out of control from what happened yesterday. The killing of the woman in Minneapolis. Left-wing agitators converged on a federal building in Minneapolis early Thursday. The chaotic gathering followed that Wednesday incident in which a woman was shot to death after ICE said she attempted to run over an agent with her vehicle. Video footage backed up the Department of Homeland Security's account of the shooting. That evidence, of course, will not deter demonstrators who gathered outside the Whipple Federal Building to demand that ICE leave the city. Tensions escalated after far-left Democrat Mayor Jacob Bray told ICE to get the fuck out of Minneapolis on Wednesday. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz also stated, is he still governor? Yeah. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz also stated that claimed the state was, quote, at war with the federal government. Well, keep it up. We'll see how that works out for you. Yeah, you might want to tone down the rhetoric there a little bit, Timmy. Yikes. Federal agents deployed tear gas on early morning crowds that appeared intent on rioting, according to reports from the scene. Arrests were reported during the clashes. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said that the woman killed had harassed ICE officers, obstructed their work, and finally attempted to run over an agent. President Trump defended the shooting as justified. Here's a good thread on this from X, from Amy Swearer, who is a senior legal fellow at American Freedom. She said, I've now watched the Minneapolis ICE shooting from 3 different angles. Yes, there are 3 different videos out there. Kids, don't just watch the one video, watch the other 2. You children, you bratty children, throwing your temper tantrums on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. Watch all 3 videos. She says, I've now watched the Minneapolis ICE shooting from 3 different angles, and there's no real question. It was quite obviously a legally justified use of deadly force by a law enforcement officer. That officer faced an unknown subject who, while ignoring lawful commands, pointed a 3,000-pound car at him and evidenced an intent to continue driving that car. He shot the driver, 1, after the driver made physical contact with his body, and 2, through the front windshield. You can slow down the video all you want and spend minutes analyzing microseconds to make after-the-fact assessments of the likelihood the driver actually intended to use the car as a lethal weapon. In reality, during those microseconds in real time, I mean, what would you do if you had a gun and someone pointed their car at you? Would you go, oh, let me wait and see what her intent is? I mean, the constraints that we put on law enforcement now. These poor people, I don't know how they do it. I would probably blow my own brains out at this point. Sorry for the bad choice of words, but She says you can slow down the video all you want and spend minutes analyzing microseconds to make after-the-fact assessments of the likelihood the driver actually intended to use the car as a lethal weapon. In reality, during those microseconds in real time, it's reasonable to presume that a driver, ignoring your commands to stop, is about to floor the gas pedal, turn the wheel into you, and run you over. It's no different than the reasonable presumption that the suspect who ignores your commands to keep their hands up and reaches for the gun in their waistband intends to use it against you rather than just toss it away. She continues in the thread, and for the "it was an illegal arrest because ICE has no authority to detain American citizens crowd. No, Minnesota law explicitly authorizes federal immigrant agents to make warrantless arrests when, within the scope of assignment, they come upon the reasonable cause to believe any felony has occurred. Impeding a federal agent, such as angling your car across the roadway to block their travel, is in fact a felony." There it is on the screen. Look at it, people. Look at it. Again, reach out to your congressperson. Reach out to your Democrat congressperson and demand that they change federal immigration law. Bet they won't. Why don't you reserve some of your phony outrage for them? Here's an interesting angle. According to the New York Post, Good's partner, her wife, in the immediate aftermath, was heard saying, quote, "I made her come down here. It's my fault." Per the Post reporting, Good had been one of several people, quote, "stalking and impeding ICE that day." You get Good's partner bringing her out to do this, Good being a problem for ICE that day already, Good refusing to comply with officers telling her to get out of her car, and Good putting her foot on the gas with an agent directly in her path. But that doesn't even account for the rhetorical madness that Democrats have been engaging in, stoking the flames by comparing ICE to the Gestapo. And here's a recent example. Here's Debbie Wasserman Schultz recently.
Trump's most popular issue is immigration, and the undocumented immigration that he says is a violent threat to our nation, when most people who they are deporting are not criminals and are simply here, who are being rounded up. 2 weekends ago, they rounded up 200 people just by stopping lawn care trucks in the neighborhood right near my own home. Is that who we fear in this country? Or is it that we want to make sure that we keep this country safe and that we can focus on America first? To me, means taking care of people at home and making life affordable when it comes to rent and healthcare and utilities, and ensuring that Americans can keep the better life that they deserve, not have Trump go after people and waste millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, deporting people from this country.
There she is, claiming deportations are not America first because they're a waste of taxpayer dollars. Wrap your head around that. Democrats spent untold billions importing people, housing them, feeding, and now they want to tell you it costs too much to send them back. Unreal. If they self-deport, it can cost as little as $1,000. And for those who act now, you could receive up to $3,000. What are you waiting for? Self-deport. Act now. It's a limited time offer for a limited time only. And look, I get it. Of course you want to come to America. That's one of the left's arguments that you can't justify their contradicting positions. America is a hellhole, but millions of people around the world want to come here. What do you suppose? What percentage of the population? See, this is one that I always wonder about. What percentage of the world's population, given the opportunity, do you imagine would want to come to America? If you gave them a free boat ride, plane ride, whatever it takes for them to get here, what percentage of the world's population would want to come to America? Would you say, let's just say a very conservative 10% would want to come live in the United States? Well, that's what, over 1 billion people? Where do we cut it off? See, that's the part of the narrative that Democrats never quite get around to talking about. It's like, yeah, we should let people come here for the opportunities. Okay, where do you cut the number off? You don't have an answer for that. I get it. We're the only sucker country on the planet with all these perks. Perks that the media will tell you don't exist, but nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Oh, they do, and that's why people want to come here, because they get a bunch of free stuff. More useless prattle from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's been in politics for like 1 million years and has never been able to make a single logical argument. But notice she did the whole thing there that leftists always do, where they make this implied argument that, like, we can't do two things at once. Meanwhile, the government is literally doing like 1 million things at a time. We should be focusing on making life better for Americans instead of deporting people. Like, we can't do this and that, which we are. And again, Joe Biden, Debbie, Deborah. In his last year in office, Joe Biden hustled 250,000 brown people out of America. I guess he wasn't focusing on making Americans' lives better. So Joe was no slouch when it came to the violent and ruthless and heartless separation of immigrant families who just came here for a better life and are not hurting anyone. She's just such a mid-level politician. I don't even know why she's still around. That's the classic display of hustle over talent. Everybody has somebody like that in their lives where it's like they don't really excel at much of anything except hustle. Now, she did think that us taking Maduro out was a good idea. I guess a broken clock is right at least twice a day. And let's talk about Maduro. How many of you folks... Yes, I'm going to get off the ICE thing now. Oh, you got to calm down, Mark. You're going to give yourself a stroke. You got to relax.
Serenity now! Serenity now!
How many of you people who are mad at Trump for deposing Maduro marched at a No Kings rally? I'll wait. I'd love to get a look at that Venn diagram. Bet it almost completely overlaps. So no kings for us, but the man who lost the last presidential election in Venezuela and then refused to leave. Sound familiar? Sound like any of the liberal narratives of the last few years? You weren't terribly concerned about that, but yeah, Trump's a dictator. Trump's the dictator. In Gaza, you're on the side of the poor oppressed Palestinians. In Ukraine, it's the brutal Putin that you oppose. But Trump yanks the dictator out of Venezuela, and suddenly you're Team Maduro. You're weaving all over the road here. Pick a lane. I don't want to hear any more about how Trump is friendly with dictators, because the minute he deposes one of them, you flip your narrative like you didn't mean it the whole time. You're in the streets chanting "Free Maduro," like this guy.
Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! Free President Maduro! La lucha sigue! Libertad, socialismo o muerte! Venceremos!
Do you know how stupid you look? I mean, never mind the skirt. You know what? I think it's time to play Now That's a Dictator. Cue that intro, would you?
Now that's a dictator!
Here we go. The human rights abuses of Maduro. Extrajudicial killings and excessive use of force. Security forces under Maduro's regime have been linked to thousands of extrajudicial killings, including during protests, like, Venezuelan No King's Day, where they just gun people down in the streets. That didn't happen in America, did it? I don't think anybody died. I'll have to get back to you on that. Torture and inhumane treatment in detention. Detainees, including potential opponents, journalists, and children, have faced torture, beatings, and degrading conditions, with reports of sexual violence and isolation in overcrowded prisons. Arbitrary arrests and political persecution. Thousands have been arbitrarily detained for dissent. How many people disappeared off the streets after No King's Day? Including human rights defenders and opposition figures. Is Bernie Sanders in prison right now? I don't think. How many of his political opponents has Donald Trump imprisoned as of today? Is it still zero? Some people were often held incommunicado, without due process. Enforced disappearances. Authorities have conducted short-term enforced disappearances, detaining individuals without a trace, contributing to a climate of fear and documented as a crime against humanity. Suppression of media and civil society. Journalists and NGOs faced harassment, arbitrary detention, and threats of closure, with independent media obstructed and human rights defenders at significant risk. I think Jimmy Kimmel was off the air, about 3 days? Violence against vulnerable groups. Ongoing abuses, including threats to indigenous peoples from illegal mining, violence against women, including criminalized abortion, and lack of protections for LGBTQ individuals. Now that's a dictator.
Now that's a dictator.
Imagine if 1/3 of all Americans left the country because Trump is such a bad guy and life here is just so horrible. Never mind what a sweet deal that would be if most Democrats just left. What a utopian society we would have. No, we can't even get Sharon Stone to leave. And you promised, Sharon, you promised.
And now, Shallow Thoughts by Al Ibril. You can't come up to me and offer me cash to buy my vote. That's bribery, and it's illegal. But you can promise to give me free housing, free health care, and free food. That's politics.
Welcome back to Mark Moseley Show, and it's time for another game. Now it's time to play Who Wants to Be President of Venezuela? Hosted by me, Donald J. Trump, because who else could make regime change sound like a primetime TV game show? Welcome to the greatest game show in the history of game shows. That's right, we're doing it live. Because otherwise you'll just say, oh, that's an AI voice. We're in Caracas, or what's left of it, and we're going to find the next leader of Venezuela. Tremendous country, huge oil reserves, believe me. But first, you're going to have to answer some very, very tough questions. No fake news answers, only winners. Losers go back to wherever they came from. All right, question number 1. Very important question, probably the best question. That's why it's number 1. How do you win an election in Venezuela? Is it A, get the most votes? Boring, nobody does that anymore. B, have the best ballot stuffing operation, huge margins, tremendous fraud. Or C, get the military to say you won, even if the vote count says no way, Jose. Question number 2. Who wants to be the president of Venezuela? Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. They're beautiful, heavy crude. It's so beautiful. It's so very heavy. Probably the heaviest crude. But production is down, way down, way down, way down. What's the best way to fix it? A, sell it all to China and then complain about imperialism the whole time. B, invite American companies in to make billions and make Venezuela great again. That's right. MAGA. Or C, nationalize everything and blame the U.S. for todos? Question number 3. The opposition test. Maria Corina Machado, I can't believe I made it through that name, and Edmundo Gonzalez are very popular, very smart people. Not as smart as me, but how do you deal with strong opposition candidates? A, let them run fairly. B, ban them, arrest them, and call them traitors. Or C, have a technical glitch that deletes their votes. Probably C is what we're going to go with. And question number 4. No, let's skip that one because we're running short on time. This is taking way too long. The final question now, the Trump lightning round question. Who is the greatest president to have ever helped Venezuela? A, Chavez, B, Maduro, or C, Donald J. Trump, who captured the bad guy, brought back the oil, and is running things now? Obviously, if you get that one wrong, you're fired. Congratulations to our winner. You are the new president of Venezuela until I say otherwise. All right, we're rolling on Mark Moseley's show, and I've calmed down quite a bit. I took several slugs of coffee, which is sure to relax me during that break. And this part of the show is brought to you by McDonald's. That's right, McDonald's. More specifically, Donald Trump's reported excessive McDonald's order resurfaces. I love this story because it's one of those things that, like, the left and the media are really, really obsessed now with Donald Trump's health. You know, Joe Biden was falling asleep at the podium, tripping and falling, wandering all over the stage. But no, we weren't terribly concerned about that for 4 years. But Donald Trump, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with his hand. What's wrong with his hand? He's 80. That's what's wrong with his hand. You ever see an 80-year-old's hand? They're frightening. I've never seen a good-looking 80-year-old hand. But President Trump's preferred McDonald's menu has resurfaced amid his, quote, perfect health claims. In an interview on a local government podcast, Florida State Senator Joe Gruters, how much you want to bet he's a Democrat, shared what he found funniest while on the campaign trail. Oh, no, I guess he's a Republican, because why would he be campaigning with Trump? Trump in 2024, he said it was the sheer quantity of the McDonald's meal that the president ordered. He said specifically he had hot fries waiting for him, okay? Then he had a filet of fish, a quarter pounder, and a Big Mac, and I think he combined 2 of them. So that's fries and 2 sandwiches, one of which was a mashup of 2 different sandwiches. And he did claim that he saw him drinking orange soda as well. Well, stop the presses. We got to get this on the front page. Trump drinks orange soda. Film at 11. I'm Ron Burgundy, here to report that Donald Trump not only had fries and 2 sandwiches, but on top of that, he drank an orange soda. Unbelievable. But hang on, because it's time for this week's episode of Whataboutism. Whataboutism, Mark? Why can't you just talk about Trump without comparing him to other presidents? Sorry, I guess you guys make the rules around here. What other president had a well-documented reputation as a fast food junkie during his presidency? You all know the answer to this. Everybody's favorite scamp, Bill Clinton. That's right. Here are some of the key highlights from reports, anecdotes from the Clinton era. Clinton was famous for jogging, or claiming to jog, and then stopping at McDonald's. Photos from the early 90s show him in a tracksuit, chatting with customers and grabbing food after morning runs. This habit was so frequent in Little Rock that a downtown McDonald's even installed a custom plaque honoring his regular visits. His favorite items: he really enjoyed Egg McMuffins, Filet-O-Fish sandwiches, Filet-O-Fish, just like Trump, Big Macs, and jalapeno cheeseburgers. I didn't know they had those. secret menu. As president-elect and early in his term, he would often snag fries or bites from other people's trays while chatting with them about politics, which led to the famous SNL sketch.
See, right now, we're sending food to Somalia, but it's not getting to the people who need it because it's being intercepted by warlords. It's not.
With the late, great Phil Hartman as Bill Clinton sneaking into McDonald's. Mrs. Clinton told us not to let you into any fast food places. And then he goes, there's a lot of things we won't be telling Mrs. Clinton. Just a classic SNL sketch. But yeah, of course, later in his life, Bill Clinton did have a quadruple bypass, and it completely shifted how he ate. And good for him. And maybe Trump will, if we're lucky, clutch his heart one day, and I know you guys will all breathlessly watch as he collapses to the stage, and then he'll have a triple bypass or a quadruple bypass. Coming up, we're gonna close out the show with some good news, as well as our doofus of the week. So stick around. I promise to be even more relaxed when we come back.
It's Mark Moseley Show. Follow Mark on X, Instagram, and Facebook at Mark Moseley. And subscribe for new episodes weekly on your favorite podcast platform.
Welcome back to Mark Moseley Show. It's time for our doofus of the week. It's a doozy. Federal prosecutors say a Canadian citizen illegally crossed the U.S. border at Peace Arch State Park in Blaine. I don't know what state that's in. Doesn't matter. And injured a U.S. Border Patrol supervisor during a prolonged and combative arrest, according to filed court documents. Lindsay Ann Moffat, a native and citizen of Canada, is charged in U.S. District Court with assault on a federal officer and improper entry into the United States. She's probably been watching the media in this country that says, hey, you don't have to listen to cops. Just charge at them. Waving a knife. It'll work out just fine because they're not allowed to shoot you. The charges stem from an incident late on December 30th of this past year. According to the FBI affidavit, Moffat tried to enter the United States earlier that day, but was denied admission after declaring possession of a marijuana-related vape pen. Oh, it gets better. Several hours later, she decided to cross at another crossing point, which was not lawful, a grassy area near Peach Arch State Park. Court records describe the park as having a deep culvert marking the border, concrete barriers, and multiple signs which read, "Do not cross, international boundary," warning that violators would be arrested. Despite those warnings, she walked around the barriers and came on in. A supervisory border agent, identified in court records as Victim 1, responded after other agents radioed for help because one was not enough to take this woman down. The affidavit states that Moffat ignored commands, shouted obscenities at agents, at one point screamed, "Go blank yourself." The supervising agent told investigators that Moffat continued yelling and would not calm down when asked. She was non-compliant, hysterical. After Moffat crossed the concrete barrier, agents attempted to arrest her for immigration violation. She resisted the supervising agent, who tried to handcuff her. Her body tensed. She refused commands about where to place her hands, and eventually she threw her body to the ground like a toddler in the mall food court as multiple agents tried to restrain her. During the struggle, Moffat shouted repeated insults and gender-based slurs at the supervising agent, calling her the worst possible thing you can call a woman. Yeah, that's the one. And told agents she hoped they would die a painful death. Once handcuffed, agents attempted to transport her to a patrol vehicle. When told she would be taken to a car, she let her body go limp, causing the agents to lose balance and fall down. As she rolled on the ground while still handcuffed, she began kicking her legs. One of those kicks struck the supervising agent in the chin, forcing the agent's glasses into the bridge of her nose. Surveillance video from the park, oh, we have to find that, captured the incident using infrared technology, was reviewed by the FBI and described as consistent. The footage shows Moffat restrained, falling to the ground, flailing her legs, and striking one agent while restrained. Agents eventually escorted Moffat to a patrol car. And just to put a beautiful, pretty bow on this whole story, the supervising agent noted that Moffat had urinated and defecated on herself during the incident. And now let's close out the show with one of my favorite news stories of the week. The headline, Fiery I-95 Crash Produced Spill Causing Major Traffic Delays in Florida. In St. Johns County, a major crash shut down part of Interstate 95. Over the weekend, the crash happened in the northbound lanes of I-95. Photos released by the St. Johns County Fire Rescue show a large active fire and significant debris spilled on the highway. A semi-truck rolled over in the crash and spilled what appeared to be dozens of boxes filled with heads of lettuce. Lettuce all over the road. Firefighters said a hazmat team was called in due to a diesel fuel spill. The crash and cleanup shut down I-95 northbound for several hours while they picked up the lettuce, causing significant traffic delays. And this is a story that obviously just invites lots of puns. So here we go. Closing out the show. This is how we're choosing to go out this week. The lettuce was tossed from the truck. Some of it was shredded. Witnesses described it as a slaughter. Was it a mess? Indeed, but just arugula day in South Florida. Thankfully, crews cleaned up the remains of the spill. I'm going to keep going. But a spokesperson for the trucking company was upset by the driver's carelessness and said, quote, heads will roll. And you may be asking, how is this good news? Well, no one was killed.
Why are you the way that you are?
Thanks for watching. Until next time, may God bless you with health, joy, and wisdom.